So we're gonna get started. We're a little bit late. But I wanna talk about something that's really important to me, which is lifestyle by design. So if you don't know my story, I used to work in corporate. I did until 2014, and I had a great job. I actually loved what I did in advertising sales. But I traveled the country. In my 20s, it was a lot of fun. I had an expense account. I got to go to cool cities. I had hotels. But then after you do that for like 7 years, it actually really sucks, right? Because you're alone in hotel bars, eating the same food. So when I quit my job in 2014 to do real estate full time, I thought my life would be different, right? I'm a lifestyle investor. The reason I got in this business was so that I had the financial freedom to make the choices that I wanted with my life. And what I'd found out was I wasn't doing a very good job at that. It wasn't until about 2 years ago when I met my husband, and we were watching a movie or something, and he just goes to me, he's like, "Your life sucks." I'm like, "I'm sorry, what?" I'm, self-made business owner. He's like, "You're on your phone all the time." He's like, I took time out of my day to spend with you tonight, and all you're doing is answering phone calls and emails. That's got to stop. And I was like, okay, you know what, you're right. If you're committing time to spend with me, I should be committing that time to spend with you. And that's where the 7 p.m. rule started. So, still to this day, it's 7 o'clock, all phones and computers are down. 7 o'clock on is our time, unless there's an emergency. So, I'm in real estate, I'm an agent, as well as a property manager. I've got, almost 100 units, right? It's kind of impossible to turn people off. So I have worked for the last 2 years. I'll tell you a little bit more about what I do and how I kind of got there. So, who am I? I own 31 properties and just under 100 units in the Chicago market as well as the Milwaukee market. I'm the managing broker of Second City Real Estate. We are a boutique real estate company that works with investors. We have 6 agents currently that are all investors first who became agents. I'm also the co-founder of the Chicago Real Estate Investors Meetup. We have a 5-year meetup with over 2,000 members that meets monthly. I am the co-founder of a website called turnkey-reviews.com, which is very similar to like a Yelp-type website for out-of-state buyers, and I'm the co-founder of this event. So it sounds very exhausting. There's a lot of things that I do. There's a lot of, I hear Dave over there just laughing. I mean, that in general is a lot of work, right? And there's a lot of moving parts to all that. But the reality is, I wake up when I want to wake up. I do not set an alarm. Yesterday and today was the first time I've set my alarm in over a year and a half. And the only other reason I set that alarm was I had jury duty at 8 o'clock in the morning in the suburbs. So I absolutely had to get up. My theory and reason for this is I want to be 100%, right? So if I have to get up, I said some people follow the whole 4:30 in the morning thing. I'm just not rested. I wake up tired. I wake up focused. Yes, I'm up longer. And yes, I have more hours in my day. But the reality is those hours aren't as productive. When I sleep in, I said, before this thing, I would sleep from 10 p.m., seriously, from 10 p.m. until, I generally get up between 7 and 8. This baby is a morning person like their daddy. They're up at 4:30 in the morning, starving and kicking, until you feed it, and then it goes back to bed. So now my schedule has changed a bit. But still, when I wake up that early in the morning, I'm not 100%. The time it takes me to go through a task is twice as long as when I'm rested. So that was always one of my goals. 30 hours a week is my goal to work. Obviously, with this week, I've worked way more than 30 hours getting the event set up. And soon to be, when I start maternity leave, it's going to go down to 20 hours, probably for the next year and a half. My goal is to take 9 months maternity leave and then come back to a 20-hour work week schedule. And then I spend over half the time with my family. I do not work on Sundays. I do not work past 7 o'clock. And then I typically only work 4 days a week. So I take off another day depending on my husband's schedule, what we want to do. But that's my goal. That's what's important to me. I travel about 8 to 10 weeks a year. This year, not so much, but last year we took off 12 weeks of vacation. With multiple businesses, that's also very hard to do, and that's not something that you can do overnight. So what I'll be telling you is how I've worked through the years to implement systems and processes to be able to do this kind of stuff. And then I live a fairly stress-free life. Some days are are worse than others, but in general, I try not to stress about things. So, step one. This step took me about 3 months to understand really, is what am I really doing? So I started off by writing down what I did every day. At the end of each day, I wrote down, hey, I woke up, made breakfast, that was 30 minutes, and then I looked through my emails, that was an hour, and then I did this. And when I started writing things down and then reflecting on things, I started to pay attention a little bit more, right? Why did it take me an hour every morning to go through my emails? I was messing around. I wasn't focused. That was one of my problems. How long did it take, right? And then I used to write down, how long should it have taken? So one of my big tasks that I have to do every month is accounting. I do the accounting for all 8 of my LLCs. I have almost 1,000 different business transactions in a monthly time period, and that is a very time-consuming thing. I'll talk about it a little bit more, but I found in my personal life, when I wasn't focused and I was forcing myself to do it, it was taking me a lot longer. I was making a lot more errors. So I changed my process on it. I'll get into that as well. But how long should it have taken, and what got in the way, right? Distractions, right? What stopped me from doing it? Why did it take me 10 hours when it should have taken 8 hours? Right? Was it my mood? Was it my focus? Was it, I got another email that came through and distracted me, right? This whole process, again, I would do it every day, and then every week I would reflect and then try to improve for the next week, right? And I followed this for months and months and months. It's something that I still go back to, actually. When I find myself not being efficient, I start this process over again. And it said sometimes it's a couple of days, yeah.
Brie, do you think that kind of got in the way of growth? That you could have grown the business more if you would have been like a workaholic for 12 hours?
At what cost, though? So his question was, do I think I would have been able to grow my business more if I'd worked 12 hours? I don't want to work 12 hours. I didn't quit my corporate job to become a real estate investor to work 12 hours, because that's what I was doing. I was working more than 12 hours. I realized that I was actually working more than I was working in corporate, and that's defeated the whole purpose of all of this, right? I don't want that. For some people, they do. That's fine. That's not what I wanted.
So it's a trade-off you didn't want to take, but you think may not got in the way, or the business could have been bigger?
When's enough, though? Everyone's got different goals. If your goal is to be Steve Jobs or whatever, that's fine. That's definitely not my goal. My goal is to live the life that I want to live. My goal is to be able to spend time with family whenever I want, to travel whenever I want, to do whatever I want. That's my goal. Everyone's goal is different, though. So, step one was, again, identifying, reflecting, right, and then making adjustments, right? Anyone can do this in their business, regardless if it's real estate or other things, but really figuring out what can be improved and working on it. Step two is cutting the bullshit. So once I figured out where my time was being spent, it was how to really optimize that. Do what you're good at, right? This is something that even reflects, John and I laugh about it all the time. There's certain tasks that John is really good at and that I am not good at. The time it takes him to do something, like marketing, graphics, all that stuff, he can put together a fantastic graphic in 5 minutes. Me, 3 days later, it will still look like a stick figure on a wall. It is just not something I'm good at. And I think as entrepreneurs, Liz said it earlier, we all feel the need that we have to be good at everything, right? And as soon as you recognize that you can't be good at everything, that it makes more sense financially for me to hire it out. So I use websites like Fiverr, Upwork. Who knows what those are? Yes. They're websites where you can go post. I just did it for our postcards. We wanted postcards for this event. I went on Upwork. I think I paid $25, and it was a 2-day delivery. Here's our logo. Here's what I want the postcard to say. I sent it. I'm like, do what you want. The guy came back. I'm like, move this here, boom, we're done. Cool. Now I've got postcards. That would have taken me legit 20 hours, but recognizing that it's not one of my skill sets. My skill sets are organization. I'm an executor, right? I execute on things, and I'm organized. So one of the things, again, that I continue to do is my accounting. People think it's crazy. I could absolutely outsource my accounting, right? That is a very menial task. You can pay someone at Upwork, I think, $5 an hour to do this. one of the reasons I like to do it is I like to know what's going on in my business. So for me, especially with my properties, my manager runs the business. He collects rent, takes out expenses, right, and then takes out his fee, and then sends me a check, and then sends me a report. I pay my insurance, taxes, my fixed costs every month. So in reality, all I need to do is look at his report every month and be like, do I have any questions? For me, what I like to do is I actually take, and I pay $2,000 a year for my own property management system, and line item by line item, I take everything and I copy and paste it from his Excel, and I put it into my own accounting system, which sounds absolutely crazy. But that's the process that I need to go into because now I remember things. So we had this happen recently where, I got charged for something, and I'm like, wait, didn't we just have this 2 months ago? And I think if I would have just skimmed over his reports, I wouldn't have realized that stuff. Helps me catch errors, also helps me make decisions a lot faster. It's like I've got almost 100 tenants. The majority of them, I can tell you when they last paid rent, if they've been paying rent on time, because I put all that information in there. So when it comes down to like, hey, should we evict someone or should we not? I don't need to go look at a report. I know what their payment history is. So-and-so always pays on time. If they've had a little bit of a hiccup, like, we'll work with them. Or so-and-so is always late. They always say they're gonna pay, half then, and they give us a third, and then they don't call us. I'm done, evict. That's the level of responsibility that I want in my business. And it's something that I'm good at. So that's something that I choose to do with my time versus hiring that out. And again, finding the balance with you and what works for you or not is identifying that. Outsource the stress. Like I said, graphics, creative things totally stress me out. It would take me twice as long to do it, and I can just hire it out. And recognizing that it stresses me out. One of the things I've also done, and when I do my weekly list of how I spend my time, is identifying things that I don't like to do. And then how do I pay someone else to do that? That's a little bit harder. But as anyone here last year heard Jay Martin speak? One of his big messages is you're not a unique snowflake, right? Everyone thinks that they are the best at what they do, and they're the only ones that can do it. And it's not true. So really outsource the stress. Identify, we talk about what's your time worth, right? My time to me is worth $200. So if it's an hour task and they cost $150, I will hire it out. If it stresses me out, if it gives me anxiety, I don't feel like I keep procrastinating on it. If it's less than $200 an hour, I hire it out. That's my rule. I'm not a big fan though of hiring everything out. I've seen way too many businesses where people talk about systems and processes and then delegation, right? And then they become the person on the top who has no idea what's going on in the bottom because there's 10 different layers of people in between. And what happens is they've got no idea what's going on in the day-to-day. I've seen it. I've fired 2 property managers over the last couple of years because of that exact situation. They sold me on like this, we are systemized, we are processed, we are efficient. And then at the end of the day, like 2 months later, I have to call the CEO and be like, you have no idea what goes on day to day in your business, do you? And both times I had to call them out. One of them actually came and closed the company because of it. Because he had no idea, like literally what was going on in his day-to-day operations. And as soon as he came back to his business and like did an audit, he closed the business. The other one fired his second in command because of it. And that's where I like having that level of control. I'm not about pure delegation. Say no, ask why. This is one of my favorites. This one gives me personal joy. Where's the Marie Kondo people in here? It sparks joy in me. I say no to everyone. Literally everyone that asks me to have a meeting with them, my answer is no. But unless you explain to me why, right? We all want to be yes people, right? We're all used to pleasing, right? And accommodating other people, but at what cost? So the way I look at things is every 30-minute meeting with you is half an hour I can't spend with my family. So no, I will not meet with you, but explain to me why we should and why I should spend time with my family to meet with you. And it becomes a very interesting conversation with people, right? Because all of a sudden, you get down to the why so quickly and realize like, hey, is this actually worth my time? How many times, like I said, Dave, you probably get this a lot. Let's have coffee and pick your brain. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into. And what if that conversation is, let's just say, a wholesaler from Denver? And how is that relevant to your business? It's not. And so how can you really provide value to them? No. And can they really provide value to you? No. So what's the point of it, right? So I say no to all my meetings. Now, I obviously do take meetings, but I have to know what the meeting is going to be about. And if I can provide value and they can provide value to me and there's a reason to actually meet, then of course I will do it. But between LinkedIn and being a small business owner and bigger pockets, I get 3 to 5 business meeting requests a day, almost. Some days even more. And again, I can't help everyone. And that would be a full-time job, taking those phone calls. So even with the brokerage company, we work with investor clients. I get emails all the time like, hey, we want to talk to you about being a realtor. Great. What's your budget and what's your area? Those are the 2 questions I ask. And if they're like, my budget is, I want to look in Wrigleyville and my budget's $100,000. Great, I cannot help you. Off the bat. There's no point of even having a conversation if that's your expectation. Or another example, I'll be like, hey, I'm looking at the south side Chicago, my budget is this. Great, that's actually not me, that's Ronan. Because Ronan's the expert on our team that handles those areas. I handle the north side. And let's just say your question is, my budget is this and I'm looking on the north side. That's my area of expertise. I then follow up with an email of property examples, breaking down the numbers. Here's what to expect. Here's price points. Here's pictures. Go through this email, right? It takes you about 15 minutes, and then come back to me when you have. If you look at all these property examples that I've sent you, and you think that you would buy any one of those, then we're good. Let's have a conversation. We can talk further. But if you're looking at these properties and being like, man, I would never pay that, or oh, I would never take those returns, then the north side of Chicago is not the right market for you, right? I do all of this before we even have a phone call, right? It has cut down on my time by at least half, and it lets me weed people out. Also lets me give referrals to other people, right? We have a really large network of referrals because, again, we don't really take on everyone. We want to make sure the relationship is aligned. Goal-based tasks. So ask yourself when you're doing tasks, what is that getting you to, right? What's your goal, right? If your goal is to work 12 hours a day and to be the, executive vice president of some mega million company, then what are you doing? Is this task getting you to that goal? Is your question. That for me, it's about lifestyle and freedom. Is this task getting me to my goal? Yes or no? And really work to focus your schedule and your time on that moving forward. Ask yourself every day, is this really getting me my goal? Using your time efficiently, obviously. My other thing is stop giving a shit. You got to stop giving a shit about people's feelings, to be honest. We want to be these people pleasers. And I hate it. I hate being a people pleaser. I'm going to do what makes sense for me. And if I think I can provide value to you, I will do it. But otherwise, I think we need to stop pretending that we can help everyone, because the reality is we can't. And again, what does it cost you? For me, it's time with my family. If every half an hour is a half an hour away from my family, and I have to have that value in that conversation, that meeting, that task, as to why I should spend time away from my family. Step 3 is focus. So this is a luxury that I have because I'm self-employed, where I don't have necessarily a set schedule. I don't have to go to an office Monday through Friday from set different hours. But one of the biggest things that I have done is I only work when I'm in the mood. So some days I wake up, especially with baby, 4:30 in the morning, ready to go. I am energized, I am ready to go, and I will do half of my weekly to-do list in that day, right? I am focused, I'm going, I go, go, go. There are some days I wake up and I am just crabby, right? I am not in the mood, I hate people, I'm just tired, right? We have some sort of insomnia with this thing, and I just take the day off. I take the day off. I clear my schedule and I take the day off because I know that those conversations I have with clients are important, right? I'm trying to earn their business. And if I'm half in the mood or I'm not focused, right, they're not gonna wanna work with me. So that's where my goal-oriented tasks come from, is talking to clients, right? That's what gets me to my goal. I need to be 100% when I talk to my clients. Additionally, I'm generally advising clients on how to spend $500,000 to $1 million. That's a level of responsibility that I take very seriously, and I need to be focused, right? If we go see a property, I need to make sure I'm presenting the right numbers, right? Or because if I'm tired and I make mistakes, right, it's costing them thousands of dollars, and that's not something that I want to do. So that part is a different, so not everyone has that luxury. But the other thing is I follow the getting things done method. Who's heard of that method? Sweet. So I was too busy to read the book, so I read the Cliff Notes. But I've been doing this for about 3 years now, and it has been probably the most impactful part of my life and my lifestyle. So I'll break it down for you, the theory of it, and you can buy the book if you want. First part is writing everything down. So next to my computer, I have a big notebook, a spiral notebook. I'm on my third actually now. And every week I started off week of whatever. I write down, I've got a personal category, I've got a brokerage category, I've got a Milwaukee category, and then typically half the year it's a summit category as well. And the theory is you write everything down because the mental energy that you spend trying to remember things, right, is wasting your time. So, and it really does happen. So I keep a notebook next to my bed too. When I go to bed, it comes next to my bed. So if I'm thinking of something at night, I just write it down. Try it for a week. Really do it. It's really quite mind-blowing. So again, we spend so much time and brain energy trying to remember things that when you write it down, when you start freaking out, because I did this for the first maybe month or so, like, oh, I think I'm gonna forget. Oh, it's written down. It's written down. You will get to it later. Move on. Really, really helps. Second thing is in the morning you start with small tasks. So the theory also is that there is some sort of personal sense of accomplishment, right, when we cross things off a list. Some people like the digital list. I still physically write everything down. And every morning, if the task takes less than 5 minutes, you do it first thing in the morning. So that way, if I look at my first thing in the morning, I've got 20 things on my list, and boom, I just knocked out 5. I'm 25% done with my day. Not really true, but that's how I trick myself. Like, man, I've knocked my tasks off. And I love looking at my notebook and just seeing things crossed off, right? It gives me a sense of accomplishment. So that's part of it. The other thing is breaking up large tasks. Now, the example they give in the book said, let's just use the example of this event. Get speakers, right? We've got 30 speakers. It's a really big task, right? If I just wrote down get speakers in my notebook, right? That's 20, 30 hours of work. I'm gonna procrastinate on that, right? It becomes so overwhelming that you start to procrastinate on it. So instead of, it's identify 5 speakers. Who's gonna be our anchors, right? And then it's like, well, what other topics are we missing? So the point is to break it down. The example that they use in the book is Christmas cards. Instead of writing down Christmas cards on your list, first write down, get everyone's address. Then write down, buy the Christmas cards. Then write down, address the Christmas cards. Then write down, go buy stamps. And that becomes little tasks that your brain, right? Because now it's like, oh, that's 5 minutes, I just gotta go get stamps. Not a big deal, instead of the whole 20-minute project of doing it. The other thing they say is a 2-week rule. So it's every week I start a new list, and every week I move things over from one list to the other list. If it's been on the list for 2 weeks, pretty much should I get off the pot, right? Are you gonna do it or no? You've obviously procrastinated for 2 weeks on this task. Is it really that important to do, right? And if so, do it right now. If not, take it off the list. That's one of the things, like, I've had on my list, I paid for it too, would be to do an additional certification for my license. I think I bought it in November. I still haven't done it yet. I prepaid for the class. At this point, it's off my list, right? I'm not gonna do it. Maybe next year when I have time, I'll put it back on the list. But that was on my list for like 2 weeks, actually even a little bit longer, before I just said, you know what? It's not a priority to me right now. Before I stress out about moving this over every single week and then a whole month goes by and I feel really bad about myself because I just wasn't doing it, take it off the list. Simple as that. So I live and die by my to-do list. It goes with me literally everywhere. Cool? Questions? No? Try it. I said, and if you want, just Google, it's on Amazon, Getting Things Done, Cliff Notes. And I think it's like a $3 Kindle version. You can read it in 15 minutes. That's the biggest takeaways I've taken from it, but I think you'll enjoy it. I enjoyed it. Tune out distractions. So again, I have the luxury of making my own schedule. But when I work, I work. So I said, the mornings I wake up super focused are great. I can get literally half my week's work done in a day. But what I do is the best invention in my life is do not disturb on my phone. I love it. In my ideal world, my phone is off of do not disturb less than 5 hours a day. I use that when I do my tasks because I need focus. So one of the things, we go through every single property in the MLS, we analyze for our clients. So I usually do it daily. Takes me about maybe, depending on the properties, 30 to 45 minutes. I close out all my email, my phone goes on do not disturb, right? Because again, I'm looking at properties and I'm giving projections and financial projections to clients who are likely going to buy them. The numbers need to be accurate. I can't be, getting an email and then I stop what I'm doing and then I go back and I'm like, where was I at with that? No, I turn it off. So when I work, I work. It said when my accounting days are my big days, I do it twice a week. It's usually between 5 to 8 hours. Those days I will likely break up. But I completely turn off my phones, everything like that. I do the work. Sometimes I like to bribe myself, usually with chocolate or ice cream. I'm not even kidding. Like, man, if I get through, so that I've got 4 partnerships I have to go through, if I do this one and this one back to back, then I get ice cream. Or naps. I also bribe myself with naps. That works out very well for me. Whatever works for you, right? And for some people, it's a monetary thing, or a day off, right? If I get all my work done today, I can take tomorrow off. My husband and I are both big, well, my husband especially is a big motorcycle guy. So we found out we were pregnant. He went and bought a brand new $20,000 motorcycle 2 weeks later, even though I told him what an awful and illogical decision that was. But we typically spend a lot of time on the motorcycle. Every Sunday we go, typically for 6 to 8 hours, and then a lot during the week. So if it's a nice day on Thursday, again, I can't fit anymore, but when I used to be able to fit in the motorcycle, if it was a Thursday, like, hey, it's supposed to be 80 degrees on Thursday, let's go up to Lake Geneva. Like, that's a whole day, we'll just lollygag, take the day off. Great, I gotta get my work done. That means I've gotta do double the work today to get that day off tomorrow. That, to me, is a bribe. I do it all the time. I trick myself into bribes. Step 4 is be selfish. So define your time. This one's been really interesting. This one I've been working on in the last year or so. I have business hours. My hours are Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, and Saturdays 10 to 2. That is very unusual for a real estate agent to have business hours. Because, right, we feel the need to be on 24/7. I actually just read an article. I was in Chicago Agent Magazine last year. I turned them down this year, but one of the big agents that came out said, I am available for you 24/7. You call me, I will be there no matter what. And I was like, that is not me, right? That is not me. The reality is, most of the time, the responses aren't emergencies. So Eric, you're in here. If you remember, the night before your closing, right, we had that big dramatic thing. It was like, 10 o'clock at night. We had to get the lawyer on the phone and have a conference call. In that sort of situation, I was obviously available, right? But if Eric texts me, he's one of my clients. If Eric texts me at 6:01, he will get an auto response. Business hours, these are my business hours. You will get a response outside or during business hours. Again, usually his text to me is, hey, how do you do a cosigner, right? Or something that can wait till tomorrow. It is not an emergency. I do not respond at all. You call my voicemail, same thing. You email me, same thing, right? And people are actually generally really responsive and respectful of it. I thought I'd get a lot more pushback about it, but the reality is, again, with my clients, with the brokerage business, my clients want to be investors to have a lifestyle. When I explain to them that they're trying to do what I do and that this is what I wanted from my life, they completely get it and are completely respectful for it. Again, we do have some pushback. So people really need to wait. You'd be surprised. I also don't work on Sundays. Sundays, again, are usually motorcycle days where I can't talk. I'm literally on the back of a motorcycle. I cannot take phone calls. That has been one of the most, when we started doing motorcycle trips on Sundays, at first I wanted to stop like every hour. Gotta check my phone. My husband, be present, and 1 hour became 2 hours. And then it became like I would check around 4 hours in. It's really quite liberating to not be on 24/7. I don't know where we got to this place in a society where we would just expect everyone to be available 24/7. It's really actually, it's counterintuitive, right? We've become this whole society of stressed out workaholics. For what? Really, for what? And I said, trim the fat. So cut out, I said, I spend the time, whatever I'm doing is doing what I really want to do at that time. I think that is all I got. So I will open it up for questions. Yes. My income's gone up. So my income's gone up. So my life is a little bit interesting because, again, I've got 5 different businesses. 5 years ago, I had 1. The other ones all came later, and just really through opportunity. So one example would be like, I'm a control freak. I'm a type A control freak, the worst. Really, I am. So when I started doing my Milwaukee business, I was up in Milwaukee at least once a day or once a week, if not longer, running that business because I felt I had to be in control. Then 2 years later, I hired a full-time property manager. Again, they're here right now. At first, I'd go up there once a month and require in-person meetings. That's one thing I was talking about. But then I started to trust them and went to bi-monthly meetings. The last time I went up there for a meeting was about 1.5 years ago, because I don't have a need to. But at the same time, I realized that my time, I was spending more time in Milwaukee and wasn't getting a dollar amount out of that. Versus being an agent, my time was better spent in Chicago. I actually hate going to Milwaukee. It's a 3-hour round trip drive. I hate driving. I drive about 3,000 miles a year now, which is fantastic for me. But that's where, so I shifted my business in 2016 from doing half the brokerage and half self-managing Milwaukee to 5% managing Milwaukee and 95% in the brokerage. My income doubled because that's where my time was better spent. Yes? Now I have 1 phone. But that's why I said I love the do not disturb feature on your phone because you can set people that it will always ring through. You know that? So my husband will always be able, if I'm on do not disturb, my family can always reach me. My tenants also know that I still self-manage my properties in Chicago. I just hired Nest Egg actually a couple weeks ago to take over the management of my maintenance issues because I'll be on maternity leave. But we had an issue again where the tenant, she knew I was pregnant. She didn't think it was an emergency. There was some water on the floor in the mechanical room. Turns out the hot water heater had burst. They'd left it running all night long. They went to bed. I woke up to 3 inches of water. I'm 6 months pregnant, carrying dehumidifiers and carpet blowers, and now I've got to remediate the mold and all because they didn't think it was an emergency, and they'd sent me 1 text. They know that when my phone's off, if you call twice within 5 minutes, it automatically rings through. So there's ways around it. To answer your question. Anyone else? Seriously, what? It's on. I don't have an iPhone. I have an Android. It's right at the top. You scroll down, and it's right there. Do not disturb. And then that's how the feature is set up. It's automatic. So I love it. In my ideal world, my phone's on maybe 5 hours a day. And again, I check my phone usually every hour. Even during my off hours, I still check every hour. But I respond if it's only an emergency, right? And most times it's actually not. One thing I also forgot to mention that I do not do in-person meetings. They are not a good use of my time. I work from home, right? I usually, it depends on the day, but I start work as soon as I get up. I'm in my pajama pants. My hair's in a ponytail. I do not wear makeup, right? So for me to go do an in-person meeting, it's a whole ta-da. I've got to do my hair. You guys don't have hair, but it's a whole process to be able to look presentable when I can do phone calls. And I actually block my phone calls up. So I usually do maybe once a week. I'll do 4 to 5 phone calls back to back, usually with clients. And they're usually what we call onboarding calls, where I get in the zone. And I talk like Bob Floss talked today about his zoning. Like he was just in the zone. But what I find when I stack my day, like that's my day. My whole day that day is phone calls. And I get really excited about it. I get to talk with like newbie clients about buying investment properties for 5 hours straight. And once I get going about it, like I get going. So I make sure that's how my day is scheduled. So in-person meetings are just not a really valuable use of my time. So I just don't do them. Yeah. I don't know. That's going to be interesting. So, yeah. Having a baby is going to be really interesting for me. Again, luckily, though, I started it 2 years ago. I took off 5 weeks and went to Europe and really left my team to handle things with the brokerage, with the manager, everything. And shockingly, the whole world did not end. It was a really and I was of that 5 weeks, I was on a cruise for 4 weeks. And on cruises, you don't have cell phone service. And when you're in international waters, you have nothing. So it was a really big anxiety for me at first, and then I got used to it. And now I've done it 3 times where I've taken off a month, and unless it's emergency, they don't bother me, right? And when you hire the right people and you have the right people in place, and you don't need to micromanage them, shockingly, they actually don't need that much oversight. So maternity leave will be interesting. We'll see. My husband's also self-employed, and he also has a flexible schedule. And so we're both taking off the first month and, gonna figure things out. And I'm quite convinced, though, I'm getting a brat. I'm serious. I am a type A control freak. My husband is a type A control freak. I've had the easiest pregnancy ever. It is nowhere as bad as I thought it was gonna be. So I figure we're gonna get jinxed somewhere. And there's no way in our karma that we were both brat children to our parents that we are gonna get an easy child. So, yeah. I was the worst colicky baby. My mom still tells me to this day she almost did not have more kids because I was such an awful child. It's a good question. At what point did I feel comfortable leaving my corporate life? And I was just we were talking about this earlier. Goals to me are, it's hard to assess a goal when people talk about units, right? I want to get 20 units. I want to get whatever amount of units. I don't look at it that way. I look at it from how much cash flow do I want, right? So that's how I assess my goals. But it can't be, if you say you want, $10,000 of cash flow this year, but the only options out there are 5% cap rates, what are you going to do? Would you, just to get to your goal, are you going to buy bad investments? Probably not. For me, it became an issue of time, right? I was up in Milwaukee, so this is before I quit right as we started buying our Milwaukee properties. And all of a sudden, my job got in the way of my real estate. And it was one day, it was 5:30 in the morning, I'm at the airport with my boss. She just had a baby, and she had just got back from maternity leave. We had to fly from Chicago to Atlanta, and then we had to drive from Atlanta to Columbus, Georgia, for a big hospital meeting with one of my clients. So it's, 2-hour flight, and then a 2-hour drive, then a 2-hour meeting, then we had a 6 a.m. flight out of Atlanta, and I think we were getting back at 10 o'clock at night. It was a really long day. And we were staying at the airport, and I got an email from Kayak, some sort of alert. So on my bucket list of places to visit, Istanbul is my number 1 place. So I got a Kayak alert 5:30 in the morning. That tickets to Istanbul were $450. I'm like, sweet, I'm going to Istanbul. And she's like, when? I'm like, I don't know, but the tickets are $450. Why wouldn't you want to go to Istanbul? And she just starts going through my schedule. Well, it's March now, and you've got this big hospital renewal. And then April, we've got this. And then next thing you know, she's in October. And she's like, in October, you can probably take half of a week. And I was like, fuck, man, I need to quit my job, right? That was the defining moment of I cannot be this controlled, right? I need to figure something else out. So within 3 months, I left my job. And really, Not yet, no, I know. We were supposed to go 2.5 years ago, and then there was the coup, and the whole trip got canceled. They were not letting anyone in Istanbul. But I'd love to go. But really it came down to then financing, right? And so I'm sure Sam talked to you guys about this today with the financing section. At that point, I was already doing commercial financing. So I asked my bank, if I quit my job, will that affect my ability to grow? He said no. I said, cool, I'm quitting, we're done. And was still able to grow. If he would have said yes, I would have stayed at my job, absolutely. Yes? Years.
Just to see, you go from taking, I remember thinking back how I was actually all the time, and I called you at 6:37. And before your time used to be like 8 or 9 o'clock every time.
Yep.
And then I texted you, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks ago, and it was an auto response. And all I could think was like, good for you.
Yeah, see? And you still like me, right? But again, it's weird in today's world for someone, Well, he's still a client, But again, the response that I've gotten by doing it has really not been that negative. Almost everyone has been really, really respectful of it. And like even like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry I texted you. It's 6:05, But really, like, we have to give each other a break. So I'll tell this story. This just happened. I've done 35 closings with this title company in Wisconsin. And we did a closing like 6 weeks ago, whatever. And then I get a call this week that they forgot to pay off my loan. And they're like, this has never happened before, but we actually did not send your payoff. So your ACH payment still went out. You made your mortgage payment. We owe you all this money. Like, we are so sorry. I'm like, no big deal. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, no big deal. It happened. It's an error, right? It's no one's fault. And she's like, and she was just besides herself. I'm like, chill. It's really not a big deal. You'll refund me the payment. I'm sure you've already sent the loan payoff, right? Not a big deal. And she called me 3 times that week to apologize again. I'm like, seriously, stop, right? What? But people, like, the things that we react to these days that stress us out is really absurd, and like, just give people a break sometimes. Yes, Bob?
How do you deal then with the client that, so you're in the zone, you're doing close. You got your thing on privacy or whatever. You have that client that says to call you 8 times, and you 3 voicemails a day, absolutely not to call you right now.
I will answer the phone. Is this an emergency? Right? Because obviously you're calling me 8 times. What's the emergency? And if it's, I had a question about this, I will call you tomorrow, and we will have a conversation about it, and I might fire you. Simple as that. But that's also something that's great. You have to fire people, right? There are certain people in your life that will be time sucks, recognizing that and letting go of it. Again, we can't please everyone. There's one client I fired. It was the first time I ever did it. I remember the day so specifically, and I was telling about it. It's like the clouds parted and the sun came down and shone on me. Man, as soon as I hung up that phone, and it was a nice call, I'm like, listen, it's pretty obvious that you and I have different ways of dealing with things. It's probably best that we part ways. If you would like a referral, I'm happy to give you one, but I really don't think this is working out. And they just said, okay, and I hung up the phone, and man, it was glorious. It was really, really glorious. But again, that person was taking up half of my time, right? And I could spend that time with 5 new clients that I like working with. So that's been another thing. Fire people. I've only had to do it a couple of times. It's not very, or I have to have a discussion about expectations. Again, is what you're demanding, right, needed right now? We had this happen with the app. So 2 weeks ago, someone requested access to the app. I get the request in the morning. I gave them the app access to the app. 20 minutes later, I get an email saying, like, oh, I put the wrong email address in. I was busy, I didn't respond. Then 20 minutes later, I got another email saying, well, you guys obviously can't manage this event, I want a refund. I'm like, seriously, it's been 20 minutes. And you requested access, I gave you access. You just requested the wrong email address, and now you want a refund? And so I didn't respond again, and then I got another email, like, this is ridiculous. I'm like, you know what? Send a refund request. That'd be great. I'm busy. I'm out of the office. I'm driving on the highway right now. So if you want me to pull over and get my laptop out so I can go in and log onto the site with my hotspot, just to give you vulva access because you need it right this second, then you probably need a refund. That was it. But you need to push back on expectations. Like, that's unrealistic. Come on. You know, and you need to be put in your place for having that sort of angst over something that is stupid. Stupid people. So that's it. Yes, I think I've got it. Yep, I gotta go.